Hello, Junior Rangers. Ranger Woods here. Wrote a little short story. It's like a little gift to you. It's called Unwrapped Gifts, Adventures of Critterville. I'm going to have Ranger Nikki come in and read it with me. Kind of goes with today's lesson. Gift of kindness.
Hello.
Hello, Ranger Nikki.
Hello, Ranger Woods.
As you know, I wrote this story the other day, and because I wanted to share a little gift with the Junior Rangers and everybody out there.
Yep.
A little gift of a story called the Unwrapped Gift, the Adventures of Critterville. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Okay.
Unwrapped Gifts. This story of the Adventures of Critterville begins on the morning of Christmas Eve Day, the last shopping day in Critterville, just before the Christmas day. Everyone was up early in their stores and businesses, working and shopping for the last Christmas dinner feast, last minute gifts, and decorations. As they spread the Christmas cheer all over Critterville and beyond. In fact, Bandit and Bonnie Raccoon had gotten up early as well, not to go to school because school was closed for Christmas vacation. They had gotten up early because they had saved money for the past 2 months doing odd jobs around Critterville to save enough money to buy their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon, a very special Christmas present. And that special Christmas present, let's see, this rough draft was a new set of beautiful wedding rings. I'm going to take over from there.
Okay.
I'll get to this page over here for you.
Okay.
Yep. I'll stop right there.
Okay. You see, when Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon got married, Mr. Raccoon being a furniture maker, well, Mr. Raccoon couldn't afford real store-bought rings. So he made Mrs. Raccoon's and his wedding rings out of wood. But being from wood, they were truly beautiful rings, and he and Mrs. Raccoon wore them proudly. But years had beaten the wooden rings up a bit. Although a bit rough, the wooden rings were still beautiful to Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon. But Bonnie and Bandit wanted to do something extra special for their parents and decided to get Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon a new set of shiny silver wedding rings. As far back as late October, Bandit and Bonnie spotted the beautiful new silver wedding rings in Grizzly's general store that costed $25 and had done odd jobs around Critterville to save enough money for the new silver wedding rings. Bandit and Bonnie, for Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon to leave the house, Bandit and Bonnie waited for Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon to leave the house early Christmas Eve morning.
Once Bonnie and Bandit were sure their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon, had left the Raccoon family home, they both gathered their money each had earned and ran downstairs to the kitchen. At the table to count how much money they had altogether. After a few minutes of counting, Bonnie and Bandit together had earned $29.67. More than enough to buy the new shiny silver wedding rings they saw at Grizzly's general store to replace the old, beautiful, but worn old wooden wedding rings Mr. Raccoon had made he and Mrs. Raccoon when he and Mrs. Raccoon were married. Bandit and Bonnie quickly put on their coats, gathered their money, and ran out the door, heading for Grizzly's general store, feeling happy and proud of themselves. for earning and saving enough money to buy their parents a special Christmas gift. They had run all the way as fast as they could, all the way to Grizzly's general store, hoping no one had bought those wedding rings. They ran right into Grizzly's door. They saw the shiny silver wedding rings. They ran right up to the counter where Grizzly was standing. Out of breath, Grizzly laughed at the young raccoons as they had to catch their breath before they could tell him what they wanted to purchase. Then Grizzly asked, "How may I help you, Bonnie and Bandit?" Bandit said, "We would like to buy the shiny silver wedding rings for Christmas for a Christmas present for our parents." Grizzly smiled and said, "That's what you two have been working all over Critterville for." Both Bonnie and Bandit smiled as they shook their heads in yes. Grizzly got the silver shiny wedding rings and said, "That will be $25. The two young raccoons paid Grizzly and said thank you as they left Grizzly's general store to go home and wrapped the Christmas present for their parents. Once outside, Bonnie noticed a young black bear looking at some toys through the windows of Grizzly's general store. The young black bear looked sad. Bonnie noticed the young black bear was wearing old, worn-out clothes. But Bonnie turned to her brother, Bandit, to tell him, but with a sad look on his face, and said, "I see, sister." The thought that anyone could be sad at Christmas made both Bandit and Bonnie sad. Bandit, along with Bonnie, both Bonnie and Bandit said. Bandit, along with his sister Bonnie, both put a smile on their faces as they approached the young, sad black bear. Bonnie, with a friendly, happy voice, said hello and asked what his name was. The young black bear, with tears rolling down his face and a frightened look, took off running into the forest.
With a concerned look on their faces for the young sad and frightened black bear, Bandit and Bonnie quickly ran into the forest after the young, sad, frightened black bear. It was a good thing Bandit and Bonnie ran into the forest after the young black bear, because that young black bear was running so fast he tripped over a branch and hurt his leg. Bandit quickly ran to the young injured black bear. Bonnie quickly said, "Don't be frightened. We are here to help you." Bandit told the young frightened black bear, "That's right, just want to help you. My name is Bandit and this is my sister Bonnie." With a smile and a happy voice, Bonnie said, "Happy to meet you." Then asked, "What is your name?" to the young black bear. With tears of sadness running down his face, the young black bear answered, "My name is Stanley." "Nice to meet you, Stanley," replied Bandit as he shook Stanley's paw. Bonnie and Bandit looked at Stanley's hurt leg and noticed Stanley could not walk on it. Bonnie said, "Stanley, we can help you to Doc Berner's doctor's office in Critterville." Stanley quickly answered, "My parents can't afford a doctor. I'll just go home and have my mother help me with my hurt leg." Bandit said, "Okay, Stanley, we can help you get home." Once again, Stanley quickly replied, "No, I can get home." Bonnie, with a calm voice, said, "Stanley, you can't walk on your leg. We have to help you get home." With the pain in his leg, Stanley agreed to let Bonnie and Bandit help him get home, and in seconds were on their way to Stanley's home. After about 10 minutes of going through the forest, they had finally reached Stanley's home. Just as they got to the door, Stanley's mother and father came running out of the door, frightened at the sight of their son Stanley being hurt. Stanley's father quickly picked Stanley up in his arms and took Stanley into the home, laying Stanley on an old bed. As Stanley's mom began to look over Stanley's leg to see what injury Stanley had to his hurt leg. Stanley's father thanked Bandit and Bonnie for helping Stanley get home. Then Stanley's mom said, "Son, you have hurt your leg pretty bad. I think it is a sprained knee, but not really sure." Then Bonnie said, "We can take Stanley to Doc Berners in Critterville. He will help fix Stanley's leg." With tears in her eyes, Stanley's mom replied, "That's okay, Bonnie. We can't afford to pay the doctor, so we will try to fix Stanley's hurt leg here at home."
Okay. Getting interesting, ain't it?
Yes, it is.
Alright, Bandit with a sad look on his face. Replied to Stanley's mother, "We understand." Then Stanley's father said, "I thank you for helping Stanley get home. My name is Mr. Berry, and my wife is Miss Berry." Miss Berry hugged both Bandit and Bonnie and thanked them for helping Stanley get home. With a sad look on their faces, both Bonnie and Bandit replied, "You are very welcome," as they went out the door, headed back to Critterville. Bonnie and Bandit sadly walked home to the Raccoon family home. Once there, they sat on the front porch, not excited anymore about the shiny silver wedding rings they had bought as a Christmas gift for their parents, but saddened how things were hard here at Christmas for the Black Bear family and their new friends, Stanley. With their sad faces, they tried to think of ways excuse me, to help the Black Bear family. Bonnie said, we have $4.67. Ben replied, "Yeah, we spent $25 on the shiny new wedding ring set for Mother and Father's Christmas present." Just then, Mr. Raccoon saw Bonnie and Bandit sitting on the front porch, sad. With a smile, Mr. Raccoon asked, "Why are you two children sad?" Bandit had to quickly think of an answer, not wanting to give away the surprise of the present of the shiny silver wedding rings. We went to get a special Christmas present for some friend of ours, but we wanted to get a special Christmas present for some friends of ours, but we hadn't enough money. With an awe of pride for his children, Mr. Raccoon said, "Children, the greatest present doesn't come from the store." Bonnie, with a confused look on her face, asked, "Where do great presents come from, Father?" Mr. Raccoon smiled with a slight tear of pride swelling up in his eye. He answered, "Why, children, the greatest gifts are unwrapped gifts that comes from the heart." Bandit, with a confused look on his face, and asked, "What are unwrapped gifts, Father?" With yet another smile on his face, Mr. Raccoon replied, "Unwrapped gifts are special gifts. They come from the heart like love, sharing, helping others, caring for others, or when you have no money, or even when you have money, instead of buying someone a gift, you make a gift from the heart, made from love, giving of your time, your thoughts, creativity, because you love someone so much that only that something special or gift can only come from inside you. Nice story. Father, still seeing a bit of confused look on his children's face, looked down at his hand. At the beautiful, warm, old wooden wedding ring he had made. He pulled it from his hand and laid it in the hands of his children and said, "This is old, worn, but more precious than all the money and fancy wedding bands in the world, because it was made from the love in my heart for the love in your mother's heart." This, children, is an example of unwrapped gifts. With tears of joy in their eyes, Bandit and Bonnie now truly understood that unwrapped gifts come from inside the heart. Both Bonnie and Bandit jumped off the porch, hugged their father, and without a word, both knew what they had to do. They thanked their father for his wisdom and of unwrapped gifts and headed for Grizzly's general store. Then quickly went inside for a few minutes and came back out feeling better than when they went in. Then they ran over to Doc Burner's doctor's office, where they went inside for a few minutes and then come back outside, both standing there feeling truly happy inside their hearts. Bonnie looked at Bandit and said, "Okay, brother, we have no gift or money to buy a gift for mother and father. What do we do now for mother and father for Christmas present?" With a smile on his face, Bandit answered, "Oh, my dear sister, unwrapped gifts, we make them something special from the love in our hearts."
Okay. Bonnie smiled at her brother as she said, "Lead the way, Bandit." Yeah. With laughter ringing out of them, they ran the whole way. Bandit and Bonnie ran all the way to Mr. Raccoon's furniture shop and disappeared inside for many hours to create the gifts of love from their hearts for their parents. That night, Christmas Eve night, Bonnie and Bandit both fell asleep tired and happy and dreaming of Christmas morning. The next morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon were the first two out of bed and downstairs in the kitchen getting coffee. Mr. Raccoon went into the family room to see what gifts Santa Claus had brought, when he noticed a beautiful wooden box engraved with the words, "Unwrapped Gifts," and a note that said, "Merry Christmas, Mother and Father. With love, Bandit and Bonnie." The note said, "Open with love from our hearts." Mr. Raccoon called Mrs. Raccoon into the family room, and together they opened the beautiful wooden box to find two new beautiful wooden wedding rings inside. On the outside of the ring was engraved love from the heart and the word "Unwrapped Gifts" inside. With tears in their eyes, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon proudly put the wooden rings on their fingers. Just then a knock came to the front door of the Raccoon family home. Mr. Raccoon opened the door to find Grizzly of Grizzly's General Store, Doc Burner, the Black Bear family, Mr. and Mrs. Berry, and their son Stanley, who was feeling much better and using crutches. to get around as he had sprained his knee, along with all the folks that lived in Critterville. Grizzly told Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon that Bandit and Bonnie had bought a Christmas gift, shiny silver wedding rings, for them with the money they had saved. Then came back a few hours later, only to return the rings, not for the money, but for food and Christmas presents for the Black Bear family. Then Doc Burner explained that Bandit and Bonnie came to his doctor's office and gave him $4.67 to go help Stanley and fix his hurt leg, and said if it costs more, they would do odd jobs around town to pay me if it cost any more than $4.67. Doc Burner explained, I was so proud to go help Stanley because of Bonnie and Bandit. Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon learned how that the thoughtful kind act they did spread out throughout the community of Critterville, and how that inspired everyone to help out with everyone signing a card that Bonnie and Bandit gave to Doc Burner with the money, $4.67 inside, to help Stanley and his parents. The Black Bear family showed the card to Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon. The card read on the outside, "Unwrapped Gifts," and on the inside, the word "with love." With tears of pride and joy in their eyes, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon hugged the Black Bear family as well as some of the folks there at their front door. Just then, Bandit and Bonnie woke up from all the noise of all the folks in Critterville at their front door. They both quickly got dressed and ran downstairs to see what was going on. Once there, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon, with tears of pride in their eyes, hugged their children. Both Bonnie and Bandit asked, "What's going on, Father?" With pride he said, "Unwrapped gifts, children." Bonnie and Bandit, seeing the wooden wedding rings on their mother and father's hands, as well as seeing Grizzly, Doc Burner, as well as the Black Bear family, felt so much joy to see the happiness on so many faces from Unwrapped Gifts. Just then, Grizzly pulled Bandit and Bonnie aside, reached into his pocket, and pulled out the box that held the shiny silver wedding rings they had bought for their parents, and said, "Here, I want you two to take these and give them to your parents. This is my way of thanking you for reminding me what Christmas is truly about." Bandit then smiled and handed Grizzly the wedding rings back, and said, "Thank you, Grizzly. We gave our parents unwrapped gifts with love we made from our hearts." Bonnie went on to say, "Please, Grizzly, give the beautiful wedding rings to Mr. and Mrs. Barry." Grizzly, with tears of joy, hugged Bandit and Bonnie and said, I will gladly do that." With that, Bandit and Bonnie, along with their parents, opened their Christmas gifts from Santa Claus. At the end of the day, Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon asked Bandit and Bonnie what was the best gift they got. Bandit and Bonnie smiled and answered, "Unwrapped gifts." Everyone in Critterville spent the rest of Christmas Day giving unwrapped gifts to each other in the form of handshakes, Merry Christmases, sharing of food, spending time with those who lived alone, hugs.
Through the word of friendship, through unwrapped gifts that only come from the heart, made from love. The Black Bear family became a part of Critterville from that day on. Things through the gifts of unwrapped gifts from that Christmas and every Christmas to come. In the end. So lessons inside this was lessons Christmas is inside you. From family, love, kindness, friendship, caring, sharing, and all the good things that come along with unwrapped gifts from your heart. So when looking for a gift to give others. Look inside before you look into the store. And I guess don't always have to be physical. Don't have to be a gift that's wrapped. I mean, unwrapped gifts can be a friendship. It can be a hug to your mom or your dad, your grandparents.
I really liked that story.
So I mean, the point of that story is it's not always about the gift that you get on the tree, which is good. Now, everybody likes the gifts coming on the tree, but it also it's more about the gifts that you already have and the gifts that you have inside you to give. I mean, when they come from inside that you took time to give thought, you know what I mean, and something that nobody else can give but you. You're the only one with those gifts. So that's what it's about. So this Christmas, if your children, junior rangers, don't have money and you feel sad because you can't give nobody a gift, you can. Look inside.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to, if you want to give them a physical gift, look inside to make something that you think they would like. And if you have trouble help doing something or making something and you help to make it, get your parent or whoever's not for a gift for, help get the other person to help you, your grandparents or something like that, to make it. And I'm sure they will. Because in turn, they're giving you an unwrapped gift.
Yep.
I mean, their love. They just can't get anything better than the unwrapped gift of family love.
Yep.
So,
thank you for the story.
it was my honor, it was my pleasure. I was trying to get it done, so I wrote a song, but I wasn't quite finished it. So, if I get a chance next show, maybe I'll play it. But I want to bring up one more thing.
Okay.
Unwrapped gifts. If you go in school and you see a child or a friend of yours, don't even have to be a friend, somebody getting bullied, stand up with them, get a teacher, get somebody to help them.
Get an adult.
Right, if you stand together, it'll end. The reason I bring it up is somebody had passed from that. Just wanted to just help each other. The best gift comes from you. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Junior Rangers. Y'all have a safe and Merry Christmas.